Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com with this week's episode of the Market Monday, coming at you a little bit early here on a Sunday. I'm going to be out of town until Thursday. I'm going to try to bring my laptop with me to do some content for more market-related stuff. I know I still need to make that video about my predictions for the Challenger decks. We have time. They're not going to be released till March, but I think I figured out the deck lists that are most likely going to be released as a Challenger deck, and therefore you can make your either buys or sells in accordance to those predictions. One of the things, of course, in MTG Finance is to get ahead of reprints. That's the biggest thing, and get ahead of the trends. And we have a biggie coming up with Challenger decks that will decay a ton of value in Standard a little bit premature before the Standard rotation decay starts to happen anyways. But the cards in those, of course, got crushed last time around, as they put about $100 was their price tag that they put in the Challenger decks. And of course, the Challenger decks were sold at what, like $29.99 MSRP, I think is what they were. And they at least maintained that MSRP value pretty well. Usually stayed around the $40 worth of value in those particular Challenger decks within about 2 weeks of the release of the set. So we're going to cover that in subsequent videos. We won't really touch on it in this particular Market Monday. Today, I want to first address some of the, I don't know, the criticism, what do we have it called? Call-out culture, where people react before they think. They just want to be the first one to call someone out rather than actually getting down to the nuts and berries of the argument to try to deconstruct it and actually make a good argument. And I'm getting sick and tired. I swear my comment section is, for the most part, pretty good. But a lot of the times you can see that on my last video where I talked about how I don't like Challenger decks, and for the reasoning that there was no equity that was actually holding post-rotation, that I wish they would have put in a few more cards, like at least 2 or 3 more high-value cards in Challenger decks that didn't rotate, and therefore there'd be some sort of reason for them to stay on the shelf rather than just decay. And if you actually look at Challenger decks now, every distributor that in existence, as well as there are still Challenger decks at Walmarts, there's still Challenger decks at all of your local game stores, there is a ton of supply out there for Challenger decks. So A, they weren't the success that Wizards thought they were going to be, because people realized that there was no sort of equity post-rotation and they didn't want to be the sucker holding on to them as they rotated. Or B, Wizards just way overprinted them. And I think it's a combination of the two. And we've been, the distributors are the ones that have lost the biggest money on that second wave, especially because people thought they would sell and they ended up didn't, because there just wasn't enough time for the decks to be viable. That was my original argument. I have nothing against Challenger decks. In fact, I absolutely love the concept of printing $100 in $30, a $30 package containing $100 worth of playable cards. My beef, they come out too late. It doesn't seem like they're a lazy product. They are just using net decks basically. They have a future league. They have tons of data to work with, and a lot of times I think that these are incredibly lazy, and they basically cherry pick the cards that can go in them, knowing that they don't want to dip into their own equity going forward of cards that are safe from rotation. So for those reasons, I just think that they're a very disingenuous product, and yeah, but people refuse to believe that, and you know, the comment section, the dislike, of course, follows suit. So I hope people will actually think before they react. I'm so sick of just having to debunk the reaction of people misrepresenting my points, and or just not even bothering to try to see where I'm coming from. So if you have arguments against what I would say, feel free in the comment section to, you know, go back and forth. I actually like it when I learn something from you, or some of my positions are challenged and it helps me see a different position. But the knee-jerk reactions, the react before you think, I got to be the first one to call Kevin out type thing is getting just so tiresome in the comment section. So anyway, speaking of call-out culture, we had a special snowflake in the comment section call me out about Ultimate Masters, about how I need to do an update video about Ultimate Masters, because apparently I'm so wrong about this set, because it's just rebounded so wonderfully since I made my video about saying I was wrong about Ultimate Masters. It crashed further than I thought it was going to crash. So anyway, here was my prediction of where I thought this is where it was when the low. This was the low when I did I was wrong about Ultimate Masters. We had a no topper value of 201 and a box topper, or a Voil EV, adding about $14 to that price tag. We update it today. This is the new one of the where it's at today. It's actually down to 188 98 with a foil EV of 215. So we've decayed a little bit of value even when I did that video. And I did say that I thought the mythics were going to rebound a bit, and you can see the mythics indeed did rebound, but it's really the rare and the uncommon slot that just got crushed. Cards like the Back to Basic and the Phyrexian Towers, which had a higher EV back then and had an incredibly high EV when the set was spoiled, have just been crushed, which was exactly my prediction, which was exactly what I was saying. Do not buy above MSRP, which was my original position. I never said that Ultimate Masters was a terrible buy or a terrible product or was anything other than that I thought that it would settle somewhere between the manufacturer suggested retail price and the distributor price, which was somewhere between about the $225 to $300 mark is where I thought it would settle. And lo and behold, it actually settled lower than even I anticipated, which I don't understand why everyone is still, why I wouldn't say everyone, we still have those special souls that are calling me out for apparently Ultimate Masters had this big rebound that I'm unaware of. So I updated it today, and this is what I came up with using the lowest prices possible throughout the interwebs. So as you can see, Liliana still is the highest by far at $65.99, and you have Card Liberated at $56. Then we have the Noble Hierarch is the only rare that has any sort of substantial value, with Demonic Tutor being the next one. The Back to Basics, the Engineered Explosives, even the Celestial Colonnade have all just been completely crushed, with the Walmart packs finally starting to roll into the market and people realizing that they're not being able to sell at the prices they want to sell. Ultimately, I think that Ultimate Masters is a pretty good investment if you actually have sealed boxes, because if you're even starting to look at Iconic Masters and Masters 25, these set EVs are starting to actually level off and start to go up. And I think that the supply is probably very similar from Ultimate Masters with those ones, except this, of course, this set entered the market a lot quicker. And I think that this one will actually start to rebound quicker than both Iconic and Masters 25, because the supply of those are still quite high due to the dismal reaction by the market to actually absorb those sealed products into them. So I can still basically get, I think Masters 25 is starting to creep up a little above the distributor price, but you can still get Iconic Masters for right around that distributor price of the 140s, I would say, is where I can get them at. So again, there's a good plug for my Patreon. One of the things, and you don't actually have to be a patron, I can actually set you up with a recurring payment through PayPal if you don't want to support Patreon. I highly respect that for all the shenanigans that Patreon has been doing in the past. But if you do want to join my Pirates Plunder Club, where you can get distributor prices, I highly, highly suggest you go check that out and read up about it, as I do offer distributor prices to my patrons, and the more money that we collectively get as a whole, the cheaper prices I can get. So with that plug out of the way, I'll have a link in the all of my video links have a description to that. Let's talk about Ultimate Masters for a second here. So Ultimate Masters, you can see, is just beyond stagnant. In fact, in a week time, it has fallen another $15 worth of TCG mid price, which is so different from TCG market price, and actually so different from the actual cards that are selling throughout the entire market, MTG market, because there's more than just TCG Player. Unfortunately, that's just what Goldfish and things like Dawnglare have as the TCG Player baseline. What I found interesting, unfortunately, it seems like the buy list and for whatever reason, Card Kingdom's off of MTG Goldfish today. I don't know why, but Card Kingdom had a lot of these cards that were very similar to the market price of the TCG Player, and some of the more bottomed out rares, we're talking about the under $2 rares, and a lot of the uncommons and commons, Card Kingdom was selling at 25 cents. So that's the lowest that they sell cards for. And I personally bought out, it was Seize the Days for 25 cents, a ton of Seize the Days from Card Kingdom, as it's just a popular commander card, as well as a bunch of Pauper staples from Ultimate Masters that Card Kingdom had for 25 cents a piece. So vendors like Card Kingdom are having a very, very tough time selling those particular cards. Slippery Bogle was another one I got for 25 cents from Card Kingdom, bought out their inventory of that. The Ultimate Masters is still on that downward spiral of how much it is worth. So with that out of the way, I if you have a point, sure, make it in the comment section, but please do your research before you call me out. It just gets so tedious, debunking myth after myth after myth, or have to reiterate my position because people want to misrepresent where my position is. Challenger decks, have no problem with them. I just think that Wizards is lazy and incompetent when they pick things to go in it, or just playing greedy. And Ultimate Masters never said it was bad. I said it was bad at that ridiculous $400 EV, which it was pre-selling for. All right, so now we're 10 minutes in after me basically whining about all of you. Let's get on to actually the topic at hand for today. So today I want to talk about the $1 million question. Is there going to be another format in between standard and modern? And it leads me to believe that there is going to be one. If you did check out Tolarian Community College video where he was talking to Gavin Verhey, who is a very high up, influential senior designer at Wizards of the Coast, they specifically talked about a format in between modern and standard. And Gavin said his vision was in 20 years, he wants to see 3, 4, 5 different formats in between standard and modern. The modern was the first stepping stone between legacy and standard, and they think that they actually made some problems with choosing modern, because if they could go back and do it again, they'd probably go a little bit further up, as there are still some problematic cards in the 8th edition through Kamigawa type stuff. It had some of those old design, more what we call degenerate or broken cards that existed. Some people like them, some people don't in the format, and they might have different parameters of where they make a format. So Gavin's vision is, yes, there will be one. We also do know from watching the arena streams that they are going to start releasing sets. They have Shadows of Innistrad programmed into Arena, and they're going to start releasing sets backwards to have these other formats into Arena. So Arena itself is going to have a modern light format in the foreseeable future. Very, very soon is the words that they use. And I think it makes sense for Arena, because if many of you, if you're grinders like I am on Arena, I didn't spend a dime on Ravnica Allegiance. I had enough gems, I had enough gold, and I had enough wildcards stockpiled. And between the free draft from if you attended your pre-release and then the play Allegiance, you got a bunch of free packs. There wasn't a lot that I think I immediately, with all my wildcards, bought all the Shocklands, and then just got like the Hydroid Krasis is really quick for a couple decks, and there wasn't really a lot of upgrades that I needed. And I think I'm pretty close to actually, I'll be completing the Ravnica Allegiance set just for rewards. How they now have you'll get gems if you get a card that over 4. All those lead to being able to get your cards really quickly on Allegiance if you are one of those persons that have had those tier decks or had most of the cards. I think if I looked at my Arena account, I think I had something like 85% of all cards on Arena. And yes, there was some significant investments into my Arena account. I originally spent the $100 for just to see where $100 would get you back in a video during open beta. And then I've had 2 different fans want me to play test a deck for them, and it costs about $100 a deck if you actually want to guarantee the mythics for those decks. So I think my Arena account has had about $300 in it since the start of Arena, and then just through grinding, I basically have every set or every card that is worthwhile having on Arena. So what I'm trying to say by this is I think that they're going to get whales like me to actually spend money, or just not even whales, grinders like me to actually spend money on Arena. They're going to have to incentivize more sets to do so, and then have it so that these cards are harder to acquire than your average. Like, they're not going to have drafts as open for those type of sets, so it's going to be harder to get these particular cards. What I'm trying to say is they just need to increase the amount of volume on Arena if they want people to actually spend more and more money. Otherwise, people just through the reward system are going to be able to get everything their hearts desire. Just imagine the next set that comes out. If I instantly got Ravnica Allegiance with very, very minimal effort, I think that I'm going to easily be able to clear out the next set just with, I'll be able to not even draft smart, just spend gems for packs at that point to get everything that I need. Anyway, so I think that might bleed over into standard, and that's what I like to say. That's the $1 million question. Is there going to be something, a Shadows over Innistrad forward? So for this video, I'm just going to kind of look at Frontier for inspiration of what cards are actually from Shadows over Innistrad forward are doing well, and talk about challenger decks again to see if they might be a good investment to start stockpiling and in anticipation for a Shadows forward format. So I like Shadows forward. I would be okay with Battle for Zendikar forward, other than it does bring in cards that I might see become potentially problematic in the future. The colorless mana is one of them, because all of those colorless mana cards seem to be jumped up a curve just because, or a mana at that point is what we like to say. The cost per mana, all those seem to be jumped up because it did have that restrictive cost of colorless mana, which is a little bit harder to do in that time period. But with the more sets released, it's easier and easier and easier to produce colorless mana, and that might be an issue going forward for Battle for Zendikar. However, I think that Battle for Zendikar's power level is nothing substantial above the sets that are released throughout that. So again, we'll look at Frontier, we'll look at all the cards that are contained in Shadows, and we'll look at specifically in Challenger decks to see if those cards are used in a Shadows forward event. The other thing I want to talk about is this gem. Gavin Verhey was asked a question on Twitter, which had a ton of responses, 309 responses. What are some of your favorite limited commons of all time? Could be any reason from being sweet to get your opponent with Mana Tithe to full value Mold Drifter. It's interesting to me that he used Mana Tithe and Mold Drifter. Both of those do have real world value. I believe Mana Tithe is $1 card and Mold Drifter is like $1.25. And Mold Drifter has been reprinted a bazillion times and continues to hold that value. So I'm thinking this is what I really think that Gavin is fishing for. I think that he's trying to create a limited product set that will sell that is just commons. Now, there are a couple ways I think they can achieve that. One is by including masterpieces in that set. And when I say masterpieces, a ton of very rare, but you might get, one every couple packs, or there might be some reason, maybe a foil every pack plus masterpieces, the option. And that, I could see those packs being able to sell for $2.99 a pack, $3.99 a pack. I don't know how they do this. Maybe they would have some sort of draft. My idea for a long time was to release these kind of wonky draft sets only to local game stores and maybe at like the Grand Prix events for people to have this one-time draft done and out, and kind of how they do on Magic Online, and do it in paper. And that will be able to have enough reprints into the mix that it stabilizes prices and gets people kind of invigorated to play that format, but not crashing the market. And this would be the best way to do that. So I'm hoping that Wizards of the Coast can actually adopt this, use their local game store scene to have these specifically draft-only sets and have these particular cards in them. But anyway, what this shows me is that Gavin is trying to find a way to make commons be reprinted. So that is at least 6, according to Gavin, 5, 6, 7 months off. So I do think that Pauper trends are starting to go back up. Let's just check that out real quick. If we come over here to prices and movers and shakers, it does seem to be that the price increase is outweighing the price decrease. And this is something that was not, this is a bad day to show it, but Oubliette, Gutshot going down. Those are two that spiked up recently. Same thing with Night Whisperers, that is having some price correction right now. But we're seeing these little 3, 4, 5 cent increases, weekly changes that we haven't seen in a while. This has been very stagnant in Pauper for months and months and months and months and months. If you click on basically any Pauper card, so look at the Kyrian Ranger, they've all gone down since their big Pauper price increase. Now you can click on basically any Pauper card. They've started to go up. So the low for the Kyrian Ranger, the 12-month rolling low, is about $3.10. It's now up to $3.33. It's a very, very staple card in the format. I think the same can be said for, you're seeing these little tick ups, even Holy Light. Cards starting to go back up. Nettle Sentinels are going up. Riftbolt slows to see a little more play in more formats, but we can even check it like Battle Screech. Battle Screech flattened or went down from its high, and it looks like it's flattened out, and it is starting to increase. So that means there's more movement on Pauper now, and I think it's mainly due to the fact that they announced that at the Magic Fest they are going to have a Mythic Championship, which is the equivalent to the Pro Tour qualifier for Pauper exclusively at the Magic Fest Los Angeles. So that's going to get people playtesting. That's going to get people playing the cards. You can also get a Pro Tour or Mythic qualifier through MTGO playing Pauper. So I'm thinking that they're now legitimately supporting the format and we're going to actually see the prices start to stabilize off and start to go back up for these highly used Pauper cards. So that, I think, is worthwhile to start really looking at Pauper, but I must warn you, there's a shelf life on investments for Pauper cards. Pauper has a couple problems with investment. A, they're hard to move. It's hard to get full value out of Pauper because buy lists are so dismal. Why I like Mythics a lot of times is the buy list spread between Mythics and the sell price, where you can or the buy into price and the buy list price. A lot of times it's razor thin if you make a mistake, or you don't have to worry about like getting a double up or a triple up like you do with rares. Sometimes if you invest in a mythic at $15, it goes up to $20 and someone buy it and there's buy list for it for $18. That's a good $3 profit per mythic. And that's, at that point, you're only losing out on the shipping that goes to the buy list. You can buy list a ton of them, and that's your best bang for your buck. When you're looking at undervalued rares and undervalued and just commons in general, buy lists have a very, 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 very small it's usually like, even if it gets up to like $1 common, the buy list price is usually like 15 cents. So you need to find someone other than a vendor to buy them from you. There are some exceptions for this, but it's a lot harder to move Pauper cards. And it might be easier to use them as trade fodder. I mean, most of my Market Monday videos are geared towards trading rather than doing this whole the whole song and dance of trying to do buy lists and sell on the market, because it's in this day and age between Amazon, eBay, all the TCG player, the margins are terrible by the times you look at fees and time and shipping. You really have to have some more expensive cards. We're talking about anything, $10 and above is profitable, but all the cards below it is just not worth your time, energy, and fees to do so. So when you look at cards for trading, though, that of course goes out the window because you're just trading cards for cards. And cards like Pauper cards, you're able to get full value out of for mythics if you trade a bunch of them, of course, is a very lucrative opportunity. One of the stories I like to tell on my channel is I had about $8,000 worth of cards stolen. Blame the victim all you want. I was in a very stressful time in my life. We had all my cards in my car, was going to sell them to various card stores, and someone busted my windows and stole my backpacks that contained all my cards in it. Anyway, what helped me get back into a vibrant collection was I was the only one that would bring uncommons and commons with me in my trade binders. And some of these do have value, so I would, and I was a power trader too. I wasn't someone that was necessarily looking for anything in particular. I was just looking for value, so I'd always trade up. So if someone needed a play set of uncommons, I'd trade up for a card I could. It was kind of cool. In my local game store, we had the perfect kind of ecosystem. We had a high-end foil collector who would give you more value for foils because all he cared about was collecting foils. We had a very vibrant commander scene that would give you higher value for commander cards, for standard and modern cards, because they didn't care about standard and modern. And then, of course, we had those ultra-competitive standard and modern players that didn't care about commander or casual cards. And it had this great ecosystem that I was just the middleman between all of them. And it's just because I didn't care about what I had. I just, cared about value for value. So anyway, I still think that it's lucrative to invest in Pauper for those reasons. And that's one thing I've been doing is I've been piecing together Pauper decks. Like at my store, I've got a bunch of I think I have a $20 mono black control deck that we put together, a $25 Stompy deck, a $25 Blitz deck, a $25 mono white heroic, and a $50 Delver deck that we sell, and we do a lot of Pauper tournaments at our store. And that's one way that's helped me to kind of invest in Pauper and make profit in the format. So if you want to get creative, that's the way to do it. You have to be really good with your time. It's got to be more like a hobby, though, because you're not going to make big bucks on this particular format. But it is interesting that Gavin's talking about it, and there is movement in the Pauper scene at the moment. I've been a very, very cheerleader of the format. I love Pauper. I think it's a very deep format. I do believe there needs to be some bans to get it back into a healthy format, because foil just really foil and Fire and Ice just really kind of messed up the meta at the moment. And I think it is time to ban Gush and a few other cards that I think could use a banning. But anyway, it's still a pretty decent format in comparison to other formats that exist in Magic at this moment. So let's get on now to where we're looking at for the Shadows over Innistrad forward format. So there's this great little place called MTG Frontier. It's a Reddit community that still plays Frontier. Yes, there are still people out there that have dug in their heels, still enjoy the format. I particularly don't like Frontier. I played it quite a bit, and I wanted it to be good, but unfortunately, it's just really riddled with hyper-aggressive decks and then just greedy mana-based decks. And it's just I think there should be a color pie, in Magic. If you're going to be playing a particular deck, you shouldn't be able to play every color. And I think that's one of the problems with like Moderns and Legacies. Beyond just that they get very degenerate, is they break color pies like crazy because it's too easy to splash, and the main reason is fetch lands. And Frontier has fetch lands. So there probably won't be fetch lands in this format going forward, so these will be a little bit skewed, but it does help us look at kind of what monocolor decks do well and what cards are contained in those decks. So I've kind of got this their last tournament they did with their Season 9, Season 10, or however they do this, of deck lists. So what is doing good right now in Frontier? Well, we have what they call a Tarka Red that just splashes for a Tarka's Command. That's from Dragons of Dark here. But however, look at this. The creatures of choice from these hyper-aggressive decks are going to be the Monastery Swiftspear, the Soulscar Mage, and the Goblin Chain Whirler. It's the most powerful cards. So good old Chain Whirler is still one of the most impactful cards from Frontier forward. So that makes Goblin Chain Whirler very, very lucrative as a potential investment if there will be a Shadows over Innistrad forward. Of course, you want to invest in the older set possible, and you want to invest in the lowest print sets possible. If it is a Shadows over Innistrad forward, Eldritch Moon is the de facto set to invest in. But I still think the Shadows of Innistrad is very, very lucrative too, because it was sandwiched in between some very, very popular blocks that had masterpieces where the Shadows block did not have masterpieces. So Kaladesh sold out. It's very, very hard to find Kaladesh. The only way you can find sealed booster packs of Kaladesh at the moment is to buy these 120 lot Kaladesh packs, which I do offer to my patrons. There are still a few left in stock. I think you can get 120 packs for something like in the 250s, so a little bit over $2 a pack. So another plug for that. However, Aether Revolt has been long gone. Both of those are very, very hard to find sealed booster packs of. And Oath of Gatewatch is still quite available for whatever reason. I think they overprinted that set. But Battle for Zendikar is also a set that's long gone. However, Shadows of Innistrad and Eldritch Moon are quite easy to still find inventory of, and I still think that that's a very good thing, because it means there's less in the market as of now, and you can still get cheap product to kind of invest in those type of cards. So those are particular cards we'll be looking at as we go through these deck lists. Other things that still see play is Wild Slash, with all the cards that still see play right now. Fate Reforged, though, there's like the Galvanic Bombardment that could definitely be I guess this does a player, though, and damage can't be prevented. But Dragon Fodder is legal in this format at the moment. We have Lightning Strike that's still there. Risk Factor, that's one that's interesting. And Smuggler's Copter seems to be in most of these decks. So if there is going to be a Shadows forward, Smuggler's Copter might end up having to get banned, of course. But the more cards that get into the mix, the less of just a powerhouse Smuggler's Copter, I think, is. I don't know. Smuggler's Copter is pretty broken with even many things that were just printed out of the latest set with being able to loot. But that's a story for another day. We have the Raven Up Ruins that sees a lot of play, and we still have cards like a Braid and Aethersphere Harvester. Karizev's Expertise. I'm assuming there's some cards that go big with the Marvel decks, possibly. And Rampaging Ferocidon is still a great card. Chandra, Experimental Frenzy. These type of cards are a lot of cards in the Challenger decks that I'm sure Hazoret's probably going to be playable in this type of format. Here's another Tarka Red. Seems very, very similar. Yeah, this list seems almost the exact same list as the one previously. Grixis Midrange. This was kind of interesting because it uses a lot more cards from this day and age. We still have the Gifted Aetherborn, 2/3 Death Touch, Lifelink, very, very good card in the format. We still have Fatal Pushes that will be legal. We have the Torrential Gearhulk and the Nicol Bolas and the Thief of Sanity, which was interesting. It's good enough if you can. I think this card gets better and better the more ways you can protect it and set it up with being able to rip out your opponent's hand. So cards like Thought Erasure are seeing play. Vraska's Contempt, Discovery Dispersal. Again, we have the greedy mana base here, but even cards like the Sunken Hollow, not Sunken Hollow, it's going to be the ones out of the Innistrad that actually look pretty interesting if we are going to have 3-color decks in the format. Because what will be legal is we will have the Shadows of Innistrad dual lands. We'll have the Kaladesh fast lands, which I think will probably be very, very lucrative in the fast decks, but might not want to be in the decks that want to just fix and have them on time. And we'll also have all the check lands, and now we'll have shock lands that are available in the format. These ones seem to prefer check lands, shock lands, fetch lands, and the Battle for Zendikar lands that can be tutored up as well. So a kind of a mix of all of those. So you have one that can come into play untapped without doing 2 damage. You have one that can come into play untapped by doing 2 damage with the shock lands, and you can just go mix and match with them. So Unmoored Ego sees a lot of play, it seems like, in this format, Hostage Taker and whatnot. The Black-Green Eldrazi is a little bit harder to predict because this is using a lot of Eldrazi cards, but Liliana Last Hope, legal in the format. Very, very expensive card. This is looking at online prices too. This card can shoot through the roof. I'm surprised this one was not included in the Masterpiece series, or whatever they call it, the Planeswalker series. We have the Assassin's Trophy, sees a lot of play. Again, Vraska's Contempt. We have the land-based of... These aren't quite legal. No, the Llanowar Waste are not quite legal. We have like Ifnir Deadlands, though, that does see play. Arch of Vraska. These are starting to show Life Crusher's Bestiary, Gonti. More and more of these, when you see more of these type of cards in these lists, you know that if they're powerful enough for Frontier, they'll probably be powerful enough for Shadows Forward. We have this Mardu Midrange. Has Aurelia in it. We have the Direfleet Daredevil, another one that gets very interesting as spells your opponent's cast are better and better and better. More Chandras, Karn. Nahiri will be legal if it shadows over Innistrad Forward. English Unmaking will also be legal. The Collective Defiance and Collective Brutality will be legal. And then you have the Hollow One, for example, Collective Brutality Hollow One. That actually seems quite lucrative. A lot of those cards out of Amike. Hish Benalia, Treasure Map, Fatal Push. Lots of cards from recent sets are competing in this Mardu midrange. More of the combo, the consoles allocation. We have even an Angrath and a Chalet, and even Authority Consoles. Those type of cards. Another Tarka's Red, kind of getting old with this deck. It seems like it has a lot of the share. You see another 4 of Goblin Chain Whirler, Soulscar Mage, and Smuggler's Copter. Bant Spirit seems interesting because you get Spell Queller, you get Selfless Spirit, you get Rattle Chains, you get Mausoleum Wanderer, and you get everything here. The Supreme Phantom. Tameo is even good in this, and Collected Company will not be legal if it shadows over Innistrad Forward, but it still seems to be a pretty good list of cards that you can still utilize with just having this kind of Spirit tempo-based list. Dust of Dawn is still legal. I believe Unsubstantiated is still legal. And there are plenty of cards that actually pair well with this deck from more recent sets. So Teferi's still good. Torrential Gearhulk's still good. Commit to Memory. Settle the Wreckage in here. Disallow. Mission Briefing. Blessed Alliance. Search Raz Kanta, Cast Out, Seal Away. All of these are still legal and probably will do well in a Shadows Forward format. The Saheeli combo might need to be banned, but Saheeli is legal. So is the Feldar Guardian, and this one utilizes even like cards like Trostani, Tireless Tracker, Reflector Mage. No, Reflector Mage is not. That one it was Oath of Gatewatch. Merfolk Branchwalker. We have the Llanowar Elf still that is not quite legal, I believe. I think that was Origins, wasn't it? Elvish Mystic, though, is... No, other way around. Llanowar Elves. Elvish Mystic was Origins, or M15, and Llanowar Elves is legal right now. And we don't quite have the Oath of Nissa here, so just some food for thought. Cards like Botanical Sanctum. And last one is there's this Absent Scales, which a lot of this is not legal because of the hardened scales, but it does show you the Winding Constrictor, Wildgrowth Walker, Merfolk Branchwalker, Walking Ballista type of package, Tireless Tracker, Rishkar, a lot of these Jailer Rangers. It's almost, besides the hardened scales, this is almost all good that can still be utilized. So those are the type of cards I definitely start looking at and be, what we call the ear to the ground, to be listening to see if this particular format is ever going to take off. If it does, you need to pull the trigger quite quickly. I think it will be very popular. I think like Gavin says, like other people have been saying, there needs to be another bridge between Modern and Standard, because the decks, it used to be when I first started Modern, you could take a Standard deck at the time and kind of upgrade it towards Modern, and it'd be pretty good. Because I believe what Modern start during Return to Ravnica is when they really started getting into Modern, and those type of decks. Of course, there were some more powerful cards like Tarmogoyf, but even cards at that time period could Standard decks could compete decently, could be morphed over pretty easily into Modern. But as time has gone on, less and less cards have been viable, and the which each set, even look at now in the Modern meta with the printing of like Skewer and Light Up the Stage, like that has really impacted Modern. The Arclight Phoenix has really impacted. It's just continued to increase the power level of Modern, to where going from Standard all the way to Modern is a huge jump, both financially and on power level and degenerate combos. So when looking at these decks, they actually do seem more interesting of decks than, it does seem like there's a lot of power level, way more power level, of course, than standard, but these still are very reflective of a standard deck of at least going to turn 4, turn 5, and not doing things that are too crazy in the format. So anyway, that's what my last but not least, though, is these actually do look lucrative if that's the case. Now, of course, I've been very critical of challenger decks, but maybe there will be some silver lining with these challenger decks if there is another format. Now, someone did rightfully say that in the comment section, knowing that I do listen and read the comment section, of saying, yeah, well, Kevin, what if there is a Shadows forward format? What is your opinions on challenger decks at that point? Then they're a knockout of the park because these all have lasting value. I think that many of the cards that are printed in these decks are going to see play in that Shadows forward format. I think Kari Zev, for example, is still powerful enough. We might not see it though because you get a lot of very aggressive cards. You even get the elemental. Is it an elemental? The devil, the Bedlam Reveler in that type, so they can just unload hands and then reload. That I think might be a better way than just going this kind of red deck win strategy. But I mean, Beaumont Couriers probably will see play. It's something that has a very unique ability for that Shadows forward. It allows you to discard lots of cards. There's Madness. There's I want to say Unearth, but it's the Amonkhet. I can't think of it at the moment. Mechanic. The Beaumont Courier enables the Soul Scar Mage as a whopping 3 of in this that already is seeing a ton of play in the Frontier format. Hazoret seems very powerful. Glorybringer still seems okay. Glorybringer really didn't start seeing a ton of play until after the rotation occurred, and then it became one of the better 5 drops. But Lightning Strikes of Braid still seem to be very, very staples in a format that comes forward, and we even saw Kari Zev's Expertise, a really powerful card if the format goes very big with huge creatures, which more and more sets they keep printing big creatures. The Vehicles deck seems interesting because yes, Aether Harvester, Heart of Kran, I'm sure is still going to be a very viable card. Scrappy Scrounger is still viable. Toolcraft Exemplar, Beaumont Courier, all those type of cards are good, and this does allow you to get the Concealed Courtyards, the Spire of Industries, and the Inspiring Vantages that will have a lot more real-world value, unclaimed territory especially, if there is a Shadows forward format. Even Second Sun Control looks kind of nice because the Wreckage, I guarantee, will be a staple in that format. Fumigate might not, but it might. I mean, there hasn't been a 5-mana or a 4-mana board wipe that is... I mean, we do have the one that's black, white now, but that's tough on the mana base. Fumigate, I think, is just better for control decks than what we're seeing with Cleansing Nova with gaining the life. And even Approach the Second Sun, that card has to still exist in the format. It's still going to be in here. And you get some sort of Field of Ruins and Irrigated Farmlands and stuff that could see play going forward. Same with the Counter Surge deck. We did already see one deck that was utilizing Hardened Scales with this sort of shell, but this deck does seem viable with the Walking Ballistas and the Whining Constrictors and whatnot. So those are all something you should definitely keep your eye on. Like I said at the start of this video, the supply of Challenger decks is still completely to the brim. You can still find these at distributor cost. I believe my price for them is around $140 to $145, I believe, is where I can get into Challenger decks. And even still to this day, you can break those down and make back your money, sort of. The problem is when you go to buy list these cards or really sell them, there's not a lot of demand for these type of cards. It's tough to sell them. So I think Chandra is like one you can easily sell. But going past Chandra and where is the Walking Ballista? These are the 2 ones you get out of the Challenger deck that are easy to sell and make your money back. But it gets even tough with cards like Blossoming Defense and Fatal Push. And then all of these cards here, from Glint Sleeve Siphoner down to Verdur's Gearhulk, very, very tough to sell. So the real world value actually isn't represented here. And same thing, Irrigated Farmlands. Field of Ruin is getting tougher and tougher to sell as well. It used to be a card that was very easy to liquidate, and it's been harder and harder. Settle Wreckage is still a good one because it's in standard, but not a lot from this deck. And the Concealed Courtyards and Inspiring Vantages have been easy sells basically because there have been like 4, 5, 6 people, from the Mana Source to Hipsters of the Coast to, like what I like to call armchair economists, that keep telling people to invest in Concealed Courtyards and Inspiring Vantage for Modern. The supply is just way too high out there for these particular cards to have any meaningful impact in the foreseeable future. I like cards, especially when investing in a format like Modern, that are going to hit a double up within a year at least, not have to wait. And so Inspiring Vantage and Concealed Courtyard, I absolutely do. I will change my tone. I will substantially change my tone if these are legal in some sort of Shadows over Innistrad forward format. Then it is the time to go crazy on these type of cards. But right now, with information at hand, a little bit tough for me to give that advice to go in on these. But yeah, you can definitely see there are a lot of good cards from the Challenger deck. So again, be ready to pull that trigger on products like these if we do get an announcement of the Shadows over Innistrad forward format. And last but not least, once again, plugging my Pirate Plunders, my Rogue deck builder, be part of our franchise through distributor pricing. Go check that out. You can get, if you feel like you want to do the legwork of breaking down Challenger decks. Explorers Vixalan even seems like something to be broken down for profit if you actually want to buy in mass and break those down. And there always is opportunities. I do a whole video series called the Pirate Plunders picks that I'll be releasing probably this week or next week of what I think is good investments right now in the Magic the Gathering sealed product market. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I've kind of been all over the place, more of a Market Monday rant. Again, don't take anything personal if you have been one of those highly critical people in my comment section. I just get kind of tired. It gets very tiresome trying to reiterate my points when people can just watch the video to get my point rather than just, look at the title of the video and make a comment right there and misrepresent exactly what I'm saying here. So that's what I have for you. I'll do a Market Monday recap of cards that I think we'll look at 10 cards that I would invest in if there is a Shadows over Innistrad forward format. I think that'd make a good little video. So be looking for that on my Rogue Market channel. Again, I don't know if I'll be able to release some videos. I'm going to bring my laptop with me to when I'm out of town, but I don't know if I'm going to have the time or kind of the atmosphere to actually produce a video, edit a video, and publish a video. But we'll hit it hard next week, if not when I get back. And we'll get back in the swing of things, definitely for February. I know that December and January have been kind of rough for the channel, especially the Rogue Market channel. Haven't really released anything for it. But I do want to get back to releasing videos, and especially market videos on a more regular schedule. Anyway, thanks for sticking with me over all this time. This has been Kevin with the Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.